Welcome to State of the State. I'm Darlene DeRezzo, and I am in conversation with Kate Duffy, president of Tipping Point Recovery. We are going to chat all things mental health and addiction and recovery. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you, Darlene. So good to be with you.
Thank you. First, I'd like our audience to learn a little bit about you. All right, so tell us a little bit about your path to where you are now.
Yeah, that's a great question. Happy to share. Never thought I would be doing what I'm doing for work. My life took a turn in my mid-40s, and my relationship with alcohol became one that kind of knocked me to my knees, and I didn't expect it. I didn't really know what was happening. I just know that I was going through a really bad divorce, and my coping mechanism was to drink more. And what I didn't know at the time is everything was changing in my brain, and I became addicted, and I became someone I didn't recognize. It was horrible. And that's really what got me in this work.
So what were you doing up until that?
Yeah, great question, because so my whole life I've been self-employed, all but a year or two. My first business was a nonprofit nursery school in Cambridge, Massachusetts. It's still there. 30 years ago, I founded that when my kids were little. So I was an early childhood person. That was my background. When we married and moved to Metro West Mass and bought a farm and had summer camp and farm animals, all the while my life was starting to spiral on the inside as we had this gorgeous property and summer camp.
Let me ask, what was going on inside?
I didn't know at the time, right? Hindsight. I had everything in my whole life that I ever dreamt of, more than I ever imagined. And I remember standing on the deck of this gorgeous, beautiful property, idyllic, 2 barns and huge house. And I was holding a glass of wine, and I remember looking up at the sky to my higher power, and I was like, really? This is it? And I had horses and goats and sheep, and I was miserable. I had pain.
So you were not happy.
Oh, I was so sad. I was sad. I had this hole. I had a hole.
So you had not noticed this up until this point?
No, it was gradual. There was a direct correlation to my relationship. So for me, my drinking was a lot about loss and loneliness. I was in a marriage, but felt very lonely, more so than I'm alone now and super happy. So and you know this, right, from your work, in a relationship and lonely. I mean, I had beautiful children. It's all I ever wanted, but it was this slow eating away. It felt really abrupt for me, but in hindsight, looking back, this was 9 years ago that I got sober. I look back now, and there were patterns and signs all throughout my whole life.
Such as?
Looking outside myself for something to help my insides feel better.
Your whole life.
Oh yeah, it started with boys, and then jobs, and then my children. So I had a good 15, 20 years of real happiness. And as my kids started to get older and my marriage was crumbling, it never occurred to me to get divorced. Never occurred to me. I find that so baffling. It was just awful. It just got worse and worse and worse and worse. It just didn't occur to me to leave. Family to me was everything. And
Let me ask about your family. So do you have siblings?
Yeah.
Did you grow up in an intact family? What was your family life like growing up?
So my family, I have 2 wonderful parents, still married today, in their mid-80s. I'm the middle child of 3. My sister is 2 years older. My brother is 4 years younger. And from all looks on the outside and even on the inside, for a lot of my life, I was super happy. I had everything I needed, everything I wanted, yet I felt from a very young age like I didn't fit in. I didn't feel comfortable in my skin. Although, again, I didn't articulate that then, right? That's looking back. My sister was smart, book smart. I felt I wasn't. Grades told me I wasn't. So I had to find my place. And I just pushed the envelope. I took risks. I was the one.
So in a family system, how would you have characterized yourself?
Oh, I was the rebel, the partier. Yeah, different terms probably than IFS, but I was I was definitely a mediator, a little bit of a hero. I was always trying to get everybody to get along, but nothing was about me, although it looked like it was all about me, right? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Tell our audience what that means.
Okay, so I felt and was told I was super selfish my whole life, and there always felt to be this confusion because my decisions were made based on what you thought of me, or I thought you thought of me, right? I'm still pick up on things. I better do this because, oh wait, I'm still there. I'm doing it again. I'm trying to be perceived by other people. There was such a discomfort inside me that you're not really aware, right?
Right.
And so for me, my decisions were, if everybody around me was okay, I would be okay.
Right, so there's a party that was manipulating your family members.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And now I get to do that for good. But that's later. That's
all right, well, do you want to jump there?
I just love that that's my superpower. I am persuasive. I use that word instead of manipulative, but I do, because when you ask what I did for work prior, when I got sober, I had a couple of attempts at getting sober. Didn't understand. I remember treatment the first time they said 1 in 20 make it, and to me that felt like, why would you bother?
Why would they say that?
Oh, so much wrong. And so I tried a couple of times, and when I finally, it always gets me emotional, when I finally started to recover slowly, I remember thinking, what am I going to do for work? Because I love my own business. I love creating. But there's no way I'm going to have a business in this field. I was really clear about that. I was wrong, but so I took a job in early recovery in a detox. I mean, I had no choice. The pull was so strong to work. When that happens and you start to get better, you have to help others.
Okay, so you went to college to study early childhood ed?
Yes, I had a degree in early childhood.
Okay, and then you opened up a daycare?
I had this nursery school and then my summer camp, right? So children's programming,
And then you had this path for how long?
When I was really struggling, I started taking little jobs because our marriage was crumbling, and I took little sales jobs. Everybody always told me I should sell, I could sell anything. So I was a recruiter for a while, but meanwhile I'm spiraling. So there was a good 5-year period where I just had a bunch of little jobs.
Is it because you struggled to hold down those jobs, or you couldn't find your fit, or you were unhappy with this?
Because of the alcohol.
Okay.
Because now I'm separated.
Okay.
So I live by myself or with my younger daughter, and these jobs were sales jobs, so you have a lot of time. And a nice brewing alcoholic or a budding alcoholic likes to be alone and likes to work from home. So you can go to the bar at lunchtime and have a drink or two, but it's just lunch. It's just with the girls, a lot of justifying. And I started not producing. I sold for a video company. They were doing marketing videos. I worked for an early childhood supply company, but not long, months, under a year, all of them. And I was just losing them. My last job, I believe, before I got sober was, I worked in a fitness center in Natick, Massachusetts. It was Get in Shape for Women, and it was closed from 12 to 4 every day. I'd go in the morning, and I was committed. I was working out, and real dichotomy, right? Like really trying to get better and trying to find spirituality, but then drinking at the end more than a couple bottles a night, like passing out. But this restaurant was, fitness center was open in the morning. They would close for 4 hours and then open at night. So what did I do in the 4-hour period? I would walk for lunch, have a few glasses of wine. It was awful. So that's when I ended up in treatment, and I did get let go from that job for obvious reasons. And
Did you hit the rock bottom?
I did.
Or would you call it that now?
Well,
how would you phrase that?
Yeah, so I really didn't want to keep doing what I was doing. I tried so many different things to stop.
What did you do to stop? What would you try to stop?
The trying was trying to drink on different days of the week, trying to drink different things.
You know what that is. So let's explain, let's break that down a little bit for our audience too, what that means.
Well, it's It's trying to manage alcohol.
Right, and what do alcoholics do, or somebody that's in addiction?
Yeah, try to manage that.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're trying to manage it, it's already managing you.
Yeah.
But that went on for a couple of years, and it didn't work.
Yep.
It just I saw the progression. I was the progression. And what was your question about?
Oh, I asked about quote unquote rock bottom. And,
Oh, yeah.
You know, how are we phrasing that?
My
How are we
definition
phrasing
of that today is it's death or jail. We die, we go to jail, or we get sober. There is no other way. Like, I'm going to cut right to the chase because that's what I do. I don't know how and why I got off when I did. Mm-hmm. You can get off at any time. And for me, there was no one around me knew. I was I was still confused about alcoholism. I didn't really know about AA. I thought AA would be for someone with a brown paper bag on their bottle. They lived outside, they had a trench coat. This was 9-10 years ago, not that long ago. And to be as immersed in the work now, I'm shocked that I had completely no clue. No one was talking about it. No one was confronting me, calling me out, except for my younger daughter toward the end.
And how did she do that?
And that helped my bottom raise up.
Yeah, so how old was she at the time, and what did she do?
Got this close to my face and told me I was disgusting. She was 14 to 17 when it was really bad. When I got sober, I believe she was 17. Mm-hmm. And she had her own little experience those years because I wasn't paying attention. She was living with me and I wasn't home, or she wasn't home, and it's awful. It's awful.
Yeah. So you don't think you were emotionally available to her?
100% not. 100% not.
And she was the one saying, our family needs help.
Yeah, she was. And there was a night where her dad drove her home back to my house. She had been with him. And I had double locked the door, which I never did, but I was taking a medication. I was blacked out, and I just unknowingly double locked the door. Well, she couldn't get in. She was texting me, and she said, I know where she might be. And she had him drive her all around town to all these little bars, and she ran in looking for me. And I share that now. I should be embarrassed to share that, but no way. I was completely out of my mind. I was not in control, and there was nobody watching out for her. Mm-hmm. And she somehow I must have finally let her in. And I remember the next day seeing the text. She just wrote, I just need to do my homework. And it was heading to 9 o'clock. That's happening so much. And, you know, I spoke to my ex-husband when I got better, and I asked him about that and other things, driving drunk. And, he just said, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to be the bad guy. I didn't want you to get in trouble or her to get mad, right? So those reasons are all of that is what inspires me to do what I do today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's jump to that. Okay. So
yeah,
that's really important what you just said about
your
relationship with your husband and his relationship with the alcohol in you.
Yeah, exactly. Because of course, I had an attitude about it in the beginning, like I have a right to be angry at how he didn't handle it, and now I completely understand. It's the basis for my work. I think the story of how I got started is really interesting because I was very clear I wasn't going to do this. I'm not a clinician. My idea of a business in recovery was I'd have to go back to school. I didn't want to do that. I was 50. I thought of a sober house or a treatment center. Not qualified for a treatment center, and sober houses scare me. I just didn't feel capable of managing. Early recovery is, my early days, I felt completely unqualified for that.
Well, let's ask this. How did you get sober?
Oh,
what program
I went to a sober house. Yeah.
Okay, so you went to a sober house.
I went to a 12-step treatment program for 30 days and dove into the steps.
Okay.
And that's what saved my life. Not going home is what saved my life. I did not go home. And
for 30 days. For 30 days.
Oh, I didn't go home. I never went back, actually. So this is back to the 17-year-old daughter.
Okay.
Came up to treatment to visit me and went to a meeting for families and listened, and came out to me at the end and said, Mom, they said it takes almost a year for your brain to rewire. And they're reading some book, it's really old, which is the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't think you should come home. Now, I lived alone with her at the time. My ex-husband lived with the woman that I described as left me for, right? And I said, well, what will you do if I don't go home? And she said, I'll go live with Dad, which to me was horrible. And I remember at the time, I don't know honestly what came over me to cause me to listen to that. And I was a mess. I was crying and anxious and really nothing left inside. And she had a tear going down her eye. Gosh, she's so brave to do that. Mm-hmm. It's interesting, she's still this way today, the more I think about it. She's a catalyst. I always find there's a catalyst in every family. Mm-hmm. There's someone that wants to do something different. Mm-hmm. So I went to a sober house after this 30-day program, and I agree. Here's another thing, it's important for me. I didn't agree to go for a year, but I did not leave for a long time. Every week or month, I made a different decision. I think I stayed in the sober house for about 4 or 5 months. Mm-hmm. And then I rented with an apartment with another sober person who ended up not making it. Those early days, I just surrounded myself with literally hundreds of meetings and hundreds of sober people. Mm-hmm. There's nothing else that would have kept me sober, I'm convinced. I didn't even like driving back to the area where I was. So she stayed with him through high school and drove from a few towns away to finish high school. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, I didn't think of it at the time, but I put my getting better ahead of what I thought she might need from me, because I'll be nothing for her if I didn't do that. It was. Yeah. And I'll tell you, I didn't have the wherewithal to know that. There was a surrender that was happening that was greater than me, because I certainly didn't make up that plan. So yeah.
Okay, so now you're sober. It's about a year-ish later.
Yeah, and I'm working in a detox.
Okay, so you're working in a detox center.
As
that's
a case
separate
manager.
from this sober house, as a case manager.
Yeah, it was my job. And I had my very first experience of a seed that was planted for my business that I didn't know at the time. But being a case manager in a detox you're really selling recovery. You're trying to get people to do more treatment. That's really what it is. And I was passionate about it. So I did okay helping, but the people aren't having it. A lot of people that are in there for their 4th, 5th, 10th time. I remember this one girl, I call her Amanda, that wasn't her name, and she wasn't having it. She said, no, my mom said I can go home. I know what I need to do. I'll go to meetings. She had 2 small kids. And it's frustrating to see that and let it go. I was working on being able to do that. I went to lunch, came back. I was in the elevator with this woman who was crying. I said, are you okay? And she said, no. My daughter said there are no beds at treatment. Now, I had found this girl a 6-month halfway house, which was hard to do. And I said, oh, what's your daughter's name? And she said, Amanda. And it was my very first experience with the lying. And I had done it, but in this role, I remember standing there and I knew something was wrong with the scene, but I didn't know what to do. So I didn't say anything. I mean, I had been trained that she was over 18, privacy laws, I couldn't share that, but I marched right to my boss's office, because this is what I was thinking. Oh, they've got to fix, this is a problem. I thought somebody was just going to fix it. Yep. And because I'm thinking of my kids, and nobody protected them from me lying to them. Yep. So I went and told my boss, and she said, well, you can't tell her the truth. And I remember at the time just being like, so, when dogs are like, or kids, I was so confused. I was like, huh?
Right, so now you're thinking, wow, how does this system really support this other system?
I just said, this is a mess. After I left that job a year later, I took a job in an ER.
Okay.
It was a grant-funded program on call with the police department, 24/7, following up on non-fatal overdoses in the ER. Yep. So there's that experience. And then when I walked into the ER, I was as shocked and again, this is a very non-clinical approach, right? Clinicians have very different approaches to this, because it makes sense, because the system we have is what you're trained in. But I just walked in there as a sober person, dying to talk to the person on the other side of the curtain, who I now knew hundreds and probably 1,000 people in recovery. And I knew the ability, they'd want to talk to me, because we talk to each other.
Absolutely.
It's just what we do. Yep. And because of the privacy laws, they would say, we have to get permission from the patient. So they asked, do you want help? And they all were saying no. So they kept coming out to me in the hall, dying to go in and see my peer. I used to say my brothers and sisters. And I would just stand there and I'd be like, well, what did you ask them? Did they want help? I'm like, I would just cry.
Right.
And follow doctors.
Because who's answering that question?
Right.
Not the person.
Right.
Not that person. Yeah.
So I would walk up and down the hall.
Not that part that wants to be sober, recover, heal. Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely not that part. Mm-hmm. This teeny little part in them that is still alive, and that's what I believe, is that if somebody's breathing, then there's something in there, and that's what I'm looking for. Mm-hmm. And my boss at the time was the vice president of AdCare in Massachusetts, because they were overseeing the grant, and I would call her and she'd just say the Serenity Prayer. She was so good at just grounding me. And I remember thinking if I were younger, I probably would have been fired because I would have made a scene.
Yeah.
And I wasn't, fortunately. So I just kind of watched and listened.
Yeah.
And I would talk to anyone that would listen to me. And doctors started to engage with me saying, because I'd say, that's actually not true. He doesn't mean he doesn't want help. I'd be like whispering. And then they started to ask me to come to doctor's rounds. Chief of physicians said, can I sign up for the recovery coach training course that I was teaching? And I was like, all right. Mm-hmm. So we started to engage 100% of the people because they changed the question, Darlene. They asked, will you speak to an addict? And I know in Rhode Island, this is a big thing. Recovery coaches is a big thing. This was back in like 2015. It was a game changer.
That is a game changer.
Just changed the question.
Totally changed the question.
Yeah. So what happened as a result of me just doing a job, not wanting a business, is I was engaging everyone. Mm-hmm. And that's a little risky for someone because that's a lot to manage. And there was about a month where I tried to take on more than I should. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, I caught myself because that's a lot. I got right-sized and I went to meetings and helped people mm-hmm. find treatment. Mm-hmm. But what started to happen in that, because of back to my manipulation, persuasion skills, is people would start to say, can you talk to my parents? Can you talk to my sister? So the people in recovery, they didn't all go to treatment right away, mm-hmm. but they'd go to a meeting. Eventually, probably 70% of them were in some form of treatment. And they would ask me to talk to their family. And I remember thinking, I'd love to talk to your family. Because in my head, I knew that they didn't know anything about what was going on. But I remember saying to them, can I tell them the truth? Mm-hmm. That we lie and we justify. I always say we. Mm-hmm. And they were like, yeah, I know. There's a moment at which most people
And why do you say we?
We, because I don't want to confront someone and say, you're a liar. Because they're not mm-hmm. a liar. We're liars. We're all liars mm-hmm. because we're addicted. Mm-hmm. And yeah, because the shame is so deep. The hole is so big that we've dug that we're in. Mm-hmm. And to me, the story with Amanda and the hospital taking no as the answer, which now I understand it's just not the right system, and the family in the dark, I just think it's a mess. Mm-hmm. So I started to engage a lot of families. And all I was doing was running a weekly meeting. And the main reason I did that is because the pain in my heart when I heard the anger, he's such a jerk, he's so manipulative, she's such a liar, which is all true. And for people that are watching who are family, it is horrible, horrible. What I said and did to my family, it's horrible. Mm-hmm. But it's also not going to breed recovery mm-hmm. to have that kind of dynamic. Yep. Yep. So they started to get better. Okay,
and we have 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So you have the 5 minutes to take this in the direction that you want. So right. You're saying people started to get better.
I looked around the room one day and I realized everybody's person was sober, and there were probably 30 or 40 people in the room, mm-hmm. 2 years. And one of the moms handed me a notebook and said, I've written down everything you said. And so we literally created what I do now by doing it. And really it's been referred to as Al-Anon on steroids. It's an alternative intervention model. Mm-hmm. It's helping families learn how to take care of themselves in all that pain, how they have become enmeshed or confused or afraid or angry because of the addiction. Mm-hmm. The addiction just poisons the whole house. Mm-hmm. And nobody's getting out. And families are breaking down, having strokes and heart attacks, and And so our program prepares people to, I mean, for wherever they're at. I meet them right where they're at. We're fully virtual, so we're online, in Zoom. We do have get-togethers in person, but our clients are now all over the country, predominantly Mass and Rhode Island because we started here, but we run 3-month training program for families to get out of the chaos and help their person find a path. This is the only illness that we wait for it to get worse before we treat it. Because of the stigma, because people think it's a choice. And I'll tell you right now, I did not choose to do what I did. If I had not gone through it though, I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah.
So the voices of people in recovery, I think, are really the new recovery model. And we are jerks, we act jerky.
Tell
me.
We
do jerky, manipulative things, but we're not jerks at our core.
And this is with the family members, correct? So the family members are in treatment.
They're in treatment. I guess you could call it treatment.
Okay,
I don't refer to it as treatment, but I like that.
Yeah.
We call them group programs, trainings.
Okay.
And so it is confusing. It is for the addict, but we start with the family.
Yeah, I'd like you to clarify that for the audience.
Okay. So every alcoholic that ever called me, almost 100% of them, doesn't call back. They want help one day, but it's hard to get out of the way, right? So we need the people around them. So I am supporting families and I'm giving them strategy, but I'm doing it for the alcoholic to have a chance, a way better chance. Imagine the people all around them getting sober from fear, confusion, and anger, and approaching it completely different. So we give really concrete things to say and do there's no situation we haven't encountered. We have interventionists on our team, and it's truly remarkable. And I'm not in charge. It's all being built by the people that are in it. I mean, I'm leading it, but this is not something that, I didn't come up with this idea. This is inside out, kitchen table. Learn what addiction is, because it is not what you think. Learn how you are part of the problem. Sorry, not sorry. And you can get out. And they have a far better chance of getting a path, but you get your voice back and you get your life back. You do not need to put up with what the addiction causes around you.
And families are coming in with what sorts of addiction?
I will say that most alcoholics and addicts have a mental health diagnosis, or should. So it's mental health, drug and alcohol. We have people that have broken through gambling addictions, food addictions,
sex
sex addiction, any addiction. And what the families start to learn is, this applies to my whole life, they say. So it's really about starting to care about ourselves, one person at a time. And there's always a catalyst, like my Jenny. There is someone in every family that's usually the one that calls us first. They hear about it, it's different, it works.
Okay, so we have less than a minute.
Yeah.
What do you want to tell the audience? Events coming up, training.
Yeah, so tippingpointrecovery.com, and we do have a free support group that we're leading locally. We're wanting to do a lot more locally. So on the website, there are free groups. There's a free article.
Do you want to give out your website?
Yeah, tippingpointrecovery.com. Yeah, and I'll talk to anyone. All you have to do is sign up for our emails or email me directly. There's an email address right on the website, phone number on the website. Just call, and we'll direct you to a resource that can help you. Don't stay stuck in this alone. That's what I want to say.
Okay. That's so inspiring. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. I'm Darlene DeRezzo. Remember that you can find us on YouTube and Vimeo, Twitter, and our new Instagram account that's at State of the State RI.